welcome to this video. Today I won't really be flexing my credentials as a psychology student too much. I will be relying on some of my knowledge, but I will also be utilizing my credentials as a female human by Dominic Noble. I'm linking it up here on the screen, and there he points out all the various ways in which Christian Grey is abusive. So he analyzes that in the shades of abuse, if you will. And it was very unclear to him. He said, presumably because he's a guy, why women seemed to like Grey so much. And it was not clear to me as when I was a teenager when it came out. But now I have a little bit more insight, and I feel I can bring some clarity to the subject if you're confused. Before I start, I'm drinking some tea, but also zbożo. This is a wheat or... I have to take you know what. Unbelievable. The custom for non-alcoholic beverages is to have twist-off cups. That's unacceptable any longer. I do not want to have to go fetch that bottle opener. Anyhow, this is like a wheat byproduct drink, similar to bread acid. Google that if you want to. It tastes even more bready than bread acid, so kudos to them. So without further ado, welcome to the video.
Intro?
Super short, spoiler-full summary. Spoilers for the whole books, by the way. Anastasia Steele interviews Christian Grey. He likes her. Then later they meet, break up like 78 times, get together 84 times, and get married and pregnant within the span of like 3 months. He's abusive to her. The end. I made this video into a numbered list. So because of that, I have my notes, which are just names of points. I think I can get by without more specific notes. So first and foremost, I think the most common thing that Christian Grey is accused of, especially lately, is financial abuse. And that is because Christian Grey keeps offering Anna different types of gifts. I think jewelry, a house, a car, and those are all things that she refuses, but he forces on her. And people call this, the thing that he does, financial abuse. Just disclaimer, all the things, all the behaviors I'm going to be discussing in this video are harmful and bad. I don't think it quite qualifies as financial abuse because he does not manage to get any sort of leverage by having those gifts. I don't think she's made to she's made to feel bad for not accepting these gifts and forced into accepting them, which is wrong. She is not later forced to repay him for these gifts. And you may ask yourself why. What is the point for E.L. James to have written it like that? And I am here to explain it to you. So Christian Grey is supposed to be a fantasy, so somebody's perfect man. And as you can see by the number of the books that was purchased and read, clearly it spoke on some level to many women, even though most of them agree that these books are bad or just a guilty pleasure. So before we get into the specifics of this dynamic and its purpose, we have to go back and analyze Anna's function within the story for a little while. And by the way, I try to channel her a little bit. Do I look demure? I'm a secretary. I love babies. That was kind of the vibe that I was going for. I hope that I nailed it. Anna's purpose within the story is to be essentially a character you project yourself onto. She doesn't really have a lot of specific character traits. She has some interests, but she is very, very bland. She has some type of wording quirks. For example, she says, I think, oh gosh, or something like this all the time. She also mentions her inner goddess, but those really read as just the writer's incompetence rather than traits specific to her that enhance and build up the character. So you're meant to project yourself onto Anna and live vicariously through her. You're Anna. That's why she, on one hand, is so bland, but on the other hand, has all these amazing opportunities, like becoming a head editor-in-chief of a newspaper or book publishing company without any credentials and any reason whatsoever. All these amazing things happen to her because you are Anna. You're reading it. You are Anna. So why would you want to be put in a situation when you are given gifts that you don't want? That's because you do want them, but what you also want is the complete sense of moral clarity that it doesn't make you greedy or a gold digger to want them. So the mechanism here is that Christian Grey offers to Anna the gifts that you really want, but you say you don't want them, but he forces them onto you because that absolves you of having to accept them and having to think about being the kind of person who wants luxurious gifts. My mug is chipped on this side. And you can just, have a clear conscience while also enjoying them. Here it is just really, really super poorly executed because she seems to be angry utilizing these gifts later as well, but that's just incompetence. The point is you want to get the expensive gift and without having to feel bad about it. I have to say that this is very much a trope of modern romance novels writers. In my new favorite series about Nevada Baylor, Ilona Andrews, a writing duo, write the main character, whose name is Rogan, giving Nevada $16 million diamond at some point, which she refuses, but because she sees that it is super important to him and he will feel rejected and sad, and also his position as an alpha top dog will be undermined if she doesn't accept this gift, she takes it for just a little while. It is still clunky, but it is better executed, and she gets to keep the necklace, which she later wears, and she admits that is beautiful. Here, she just does not know how to go about it, but it's a universal problem within the genre right now that women are made to feel bad for being gold diggers, so much so that we cannot even allow ourselves to enjoy lavish gifts in the books written by us for us. It's gotten that bad. I much prefer the romance of 90s in that respect, because then the women seem to be able to just accept gifts such as jewelry or expensive clothing. Now you have to go through, the character, the self-insert, the Mary Sue, have to go through this whole ordeal of pretending not to want the lavish gifts. And it's not just expensive stuff, it's just extravagant stuff. So a trip that your super rich or just medium rich boyfriend takes you on. I've never read, for example, somebody having to go through this because they got an expensive pet, but with the skyrocketing prices of animals, I can see in the future puppies being something that you have to agonize over, and it's just put into every book. It's a really much part of the trope. I don't know how much 50 Shades of Grey specifically had to do with establishing of this weird trope, but 2012-ish or early 2010s was the time that it was kind of solidifying and emerging as a trope within the literature. So why is Grey giving Anna gifts that she does not want? Is because you want them and you don't want to feel like a gold digger, so you reject them, but you can have them anyway. You go, girl, you get these diamonds or whatever. The second aspect I wanted to mention is the poorly understood BDSM practices and just not really realistic depictions of sex within the novel. Why was this erotic novel so popular, so well read? Here, I would like to focus on the target group as well as the author. Vast majority of the readers were women over 25. I would argue they're probably over 30, so wives and moms, such as E.L. James herself. I don't know if she has any children, but you have to kind of look at the book through the lens of the kind of person that wrote it. And also maybe consider the origins as well. This is a fan fiction of Twilight, and Twilight was written by a Mormon woman, so the sex scenes within it had to be postponed until marriage, of course, but also they were kind of ineptly written. They were not really standout sex scenes, and they had this flavor of something like it's naughty, and it's not something expected. So I think this woman just was not really equipped to write erotica, and she added BDSM to add spice to sex, which is already something that you should not really speak about. And that's also why you are able to essentially orgasm semi-spontaneously just for having a part of your body touched, so that you can imagine that your sex life is just so good that you orgasm all the time, but not having the tools to write scenes that would confirm it. So just Anna participates in BDSM, orgasms all the time, and loves to have sex because you want to be able to have all these things. And it could have been that BDSM here, I don't think is in any way, shape or form important as a particular interest or fetish, because no particular fetish seemed to be really important by itself for Gray. He seemed to be a sadist, but kind of that's it. He did not really like any things in particular, and I think none of them were really important. The whole point, so they were there because they were spicy and something really not really spoken about. These books really brought BDSM into the mainstream culture. But also BDSM practices suited his damaged character, his persona of a damaged person. And with that, I'll go to point number 3, which is, why is Christian Grey a sad little duckling? Why was his life so miserable? I think this can be summed up really, really quickly. Women from a very early age are being socialized to be caretakers and to concern themselves with the emotions of people around them, as well as being the peacekeepers of any group that they are a part of. So that's kind of really, really ingrained, especially in the mom generation of middle-aged women and older. I think these things are really shifting and being discussed right now, but that's a topic for a separate video, like the expectations for men and women right now and what it means to be a man and a woman. And ultimately, for a lot of women, part of the fantasy is being taken care of in turn, which is being fulfilled by the great sex and also the unwillingly received gifts. But from the other side, they want to have their caretaking abilities acknowledged and appreciated. Anna does not really do that much for Christian Grey, because I don't think that E.L. James understands the dynamic of why those wounded heroes work. They work because they have to be able to open up and love you, the reader, truly, and appreciate that you take care of him as well. That's the point. Here it's just completely missing. This equal exchange of caretaking is not really there. So what is left is just him being a sad little puppy. I am kind of diminishing it. He really went through some really traumatic stuff. I point you back to the Dominic Noble videos because he talks about Grey's abuse as well. But that does not justify Grey's abuse towards Anna and other people. Never mind. In general, he is sad, and a dark character with a dark past because of this trope of women loving men that they can take care of, which the man then will appreciate, and open up to them and make them feel special and validated, I completely forgot to write this aspect of it, that Anna should also do stuff for Grey other than the super basic surface level stuff, that she should also, take care of him. But they just mainly fight. Which brings me to number 4. Grey is a huge control freak and tries to control Anna and her actions all the time. And that I can also explain away quickly. How would that serve in wish fulfillment, in fantasy fulfillment for women? So, I want to introduce you who don't know it yet to the concept of mental load. Mental load is the kind of domestic labor which is purely mental and means in general all the administrative tasks about the house. It has not really come into Polish psychology yet. We don't have the equivalent of that, so it's really difficult to talk about the division of labor in Poland, because when it comes to hours of physical labor, married women do twice as much as men when it comes to childcare and domestic labor. But mental load is not even talked about because it's not really realized, and it is in Poland 100% the domain of women. And it includes tasks such as remembering everybody's birthday, or just writing them down and keeping calendar of them, purchasing gifts, or remind to purchase gifts, mindful cleaning, in the sense that, for example, if I was to clean this table and I would ask somebody who does not carry the mental load to do it, they would just take stuff off the table. But for me, to completely get rid of all the burden of the table would be to put this in its place, recycle this empty bottle, put them in the pile of books I have to return in the library, put them in the correct order on the windowsill, the way that Blueberry likes them, because I borrowed them from her, put this in its place, and in general everything has its proper place. And if I was to go put this bottle into recycling, if I was to notice that the whole bag of glass is full, I would have to go take out the trash as well. Instead of going out, I'm going to take the dog out as well. That's all the mental load. And having a partner, technically, in the fantasy that does stuff for you, that organizes your life, would be very attractive to, may I remind you that target demographic and main reader group is middle-aged women. To those women who are so tired of having to think about how their houses work, it would be very refreshing to have somebody decide that stuff for you. I think the fact that Christian Grey has a cleaner that cleans their apartment and has Anna move into his place and just organizes her life is just a realization of that desire of not having to worry about organizing your marriage, or just in general the lives of everybody in your household, of keeping track of their tasks. And they, again, why do they fight about it then if it's part of the fantasy? Same as with the outlandish gifts. Anna has to reject all these things because she's an independent woman who doesn't need no man, and E.L. James does not have the necessary means to write this dynamic in a way that makes sense or is in any way cohesive. That. And the last, 5th point that I want to mention is, why is Anna such a klutz? Why is Anna so inept about many things? Why does she not know about sex? Why is she so naive about BDSM practices? Why does she, I think, get drunk, puke, and then call Christian drunk? Why does she do all these embarrassing things? This is also a huge trope within the romance genre, and it's been quite a big realization for me while reading it, that the reason for main character being embarrassing is that the fantasy that you want to realize here is that unconditional acceptance. The main character does something embarrassing, which Christian Grey, which the male love interest, just takes in stride and either ignores or doesn't give her grief about it, or even comforts her about it, or I don't know, reframes it so that it's cool again. I think all these things, but they specifically were written in the trilogy. So Anna is so embarrassing because we want the fantasy of the constant assurance and acceptance. Just Christian Grey always, reaffirms her and reassures her after all these things. So that's why it's there. This is the most frustrating for me, and it's really so common, and it is part of this broader theme that I will maybe explore in a future video of the female main character being always a little bit worse than the male character in terms of the amount of money that she has, in terms of professional achievement, just general eloquence and stuff. I think it's worth exploring what is the mechanism behind that, but that's a topic for a separate video. So point 6 is conclusion. Why is Christian Grey so awful? That's because Christian Grey has a very utilitarian purpose in the story, which is wish fulfillment, which is fantasy fulfillment for this middle-aged women. And E.L. James, as an author, does not have the means, the knowledge. She's not a good enough writer to write these things in a way that would be believable or not come off as abuse. I mean, what she wrote is just an abusive jerk, but what she wants to have written is a very sexy, compelling, well-rounded, rich, helpful, caring, generous, mental load carrying, super handsome boy. She did not succeed. I hope that it was at least partially informative. I think that this is my one type of secretary into another type of secretary transformation, by the way. I don't know why I did that, but I just had these glasses ready, so why not? I hope it was at least partially informative. If you enjoyed yourself, then consider subscribing and leaving a comment. If you really enjoyed it, maybe consider supporting me and Kira, my dog. We're always gathering funds for her education, mine as well as a dog trainer, in her future education in the direction of animal-assisted therapy. I want her to be a therapy dog. And before you go, I thought I'd mention that I borrowed the Grey point of view first book as well as the second book, because 50 Shades of Grey is still so popular that there is actually a queue in order to read this book in my library. And to cheer myself up, I will eat this heart and see my fortune. Your plural. Your future is as endless as high heavens. Well, this is, by the way, the type of wafer that Jesus bread, Jesus body in churches. Very church vibes. This is just white chocolate. And this is milk. So it tastes like the Kinder Surprise. Thank you once again. See you next week or this week if you follow me on Reddit, because I do stream every Sunday. Cheers and bye-bye. Zapraszam, no. Chodź. Oh, somebody didn't really show her face during the video, so Kirusha, say hi. She can't, she only can say ho ho ho. Can you say ho ho ho, Kirusha? Ho? Ho 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 ho, oh.